Geoff and Liz, please.
Hello everybody.
Yes, afternoon. Afternoon.
Okay, we won't take much of your time. We really just wanted to reiterate what we had put in our written submission, and that is don't spend so much. Really just to try to cut out some of that icing. I keep thinking about a cake, a fruit cake, and you can make a fruit cake, put all the fruit in it, and it's a good cake, it's sustainable, you know, tastes nice. You don't have to have icing on the top end, hundreds and thousands for it to be good. So we're talking about trying to cut that icing off. We've heard lots of feedback from people who are just, you know, have been saying before now, how do you afford rates? You probably know that peninsula properties have quite high values, so even ordinary families are paying really high rates just because of the way that houses turn over and things over there. Please stick to the core services. I think the council does most of those pretty good. Our water and sewer and everything's really good, but we don't need some of the extras. You had asked questions in there about events, and I think that's one of the things that could be considered an extra. I know it's nice and it's good, you know, they're nice to have, but a lot of the families in that who are having to pay high rates wouldn't actually be able to afford to go to those events. So they're actually subsidising people who can afford to go to them. Make it a higher price to go if need be, rather than charging everybody. Climate change. We live in Devotial, and our property is accessed by Seafield Road, which is at sea level. We moved there about 40 years ago, and when we moved there, probably about once a year with a southerly storm, we'd get a bit of jetsam and stuff across the road. That happens virtually with every southerly storm now. And the sea comes over further, it comes over into the camping ground. I don't know if you know where the camping ground is there in Devotial, and it never used to. So, you know, that's a real sign that sea level rise is happening. So we would rather see money spent on addressing what we're going to do about that than, I'm sorry, but cycleways, they're great and they're nice to have, but the amount that they're going to save in global, you know, the carbon emissions is going to be really infinitesimal. New Zealand hardly contributes to carbon emissions anyway. So I think that we're better, if you're having money to spend in climate change things, that we're better to address the actual problems that are occurring now with climate change before we get cut off. One of the other things, and we talked about it on the drive in, was about the potential to dispose of properties. And I know everyone says, you know, you never sell the family silver. Well, actually we think you should sell the family silver. Sell the family silver if it's a piece sitting in the back of the cupboard that's just you take out once a year to clean the tarnish off. If it's a precious piece from Auntie Maud, and you keep it and cherish it and use it. But look at the stuff that's not been used. And we've suggested that there are actually probably a lot of reserves that are either underutilised or not utilised at all that could also be looked at. I realise that money would have to be spent back on reserves, but that then could be used for some of the capital projects on reserves instead of having to rate for those capital projects. Yeah, and just the last thing, we're just saying every household has to tighten its belt in these times. We all know, everybody knows what things cost at the supermarket now because they've just all gone up so much. So you do your grocery shopping accordingly and you buy less.
Yeah, we just got a quick comment, please, about cycleways. When we came in today up Sparks Road, and the on the right-hand side, as you're coming up, there's a concrete curb, and then you have a cycleway. But there's a gap like that, and it's got grass planted in it. To my mind, that should be concreted, so there's no maintenance whatsoever. You're wasting money there. And also, I feel quite sorry for the people. As you go around, we turn left up Strickland Street. There's a cycleway either side of the road. And those poor people, if they are having a small party or whatever at their place, there's no parking for people. And I'm sure that if somebody wants to buy a house, that would be one of the last places they would look at because of having cycleways on both sides. It has an effect on the value of that property, I think. Thank you.
Okay, Tim, did you have one? Sorry.
When we're talking increase in costs, etc., as a council, if we kept and maintained our budgets rather than looking at increasing them, but looked at changing what we spend it on with regards to the city's priorities, would you be supportive of that?
Yeah, it depends. I think that you don't want to let maintenance slip. We all know that, you've got to keep up maintenance around your house and that, but it's the level of increase. And there have been increases right across the board, but I do think that 13% that's proposed is pretty high. And we should have been sitting in front of ECAN talking to them about their 24%, which is horrific, really. But we didn't get around to that. It's just the level. I think everybody has accepted that costs have gone up, and you've got to keep up the maintenance and stuff, but it's the amount. Yeah.
Liz, are you doing another one for...
Yeah, I am. Just a really quick one for the
far away.
Base Forum. Really just to sort of introduce ourselves as much as anything, because the forum doesn't make specific submissions because we're quite a large group, or we represent a lot of groups, and you can never get them all to agree. So what we do is encourage our members to make submissions, and I think there's actually quite a few members, some of whom are here today, excuse me, who have made submissions. But again, we're just saying really that times are tough for people. We did discuss it at our last meeting, and people said, lots of people were talking about the proposed increase. They had heard of people who had actually sold up, in Akaroa in particular, because they were getting to the stage, retired people like us, who are asset rich but not necessarily cash rich. So they can't afford the level of rates, and they're moving to town probably earlier than what they normally would. Businesses are still doing it quite hard, sorry. And, thanks, Helen. Farmers, as you'll know too, we're going into the winter, just straight off a drought, and we've got the rain now, but it's so cold the grass isn't going to grow, so, times are tough there as well. So just please, think about the families and communities that at the end of the day have to pay the rates.
Okay. Just going back to what you were saying about where the flotsam jet, whatever, comes across the road when it's southerly. So that's roughly from that little bridge at the start by the camping ground up to the boat ramp. It's sort of in that area.
Yeah, it goes into a sort of a corner where Haywards Lane comes down, and the sea actually will wash across the road there. Even in some of those king tides that we have now, without a storm, it'll come and it just washes across the road there and goes into that bottom part of the camping ground, which didn't used to happen.
Okay, yeah, because when I go over there, sometimes I go into Takamatura, and by crikey, high tide's not far from the road there. So you've got
actually have
similar
the same
thing.
problem in Takamatura.
Similar thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah, thank you for a very sensible submission. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, which I've been doing a lot of lately. In terms of rates sensitivity, obviously with taxes, we tax people on their income, but with rates, it's on the value of their property. Do you think we should be looking at alternate ways of rating, perhaps putting in other factors like whether the people are retired or not, adding some sort of sensitivity to the rates? Do you think that that would help in any way, shape or form?
I actually think the whole rating system should be overthrown, but you probably haven't got time to hear that today.
Yes. Yeah.
I just think, I always give an example of a little old lady living in a very expensive house and a family of 6 living next door. She's not going to flush the toilet as many times as what the family of 6 does, but she will pay rates on the value of her house. A very wise Banks Peninsula councillor said to me once that he thought that water and things like that should be based on how much you use, right from scratch. We do that with electricity. You pay for what you use. Do that with water.
But I guess the
Don't know if you
tough
can
thing,
meter sewage, but
the tough thing for a family like that, with sort of six mouths to feed, or
yes, but their house may not be worth as much. Oh, no, well, yeah, you're right. No, sorry. That would then be difficult. I guess that you could grade that somehow, I don't know, but it's certainly not a user pays system, I don't think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
But
you,
I
Kelly.
haven't got time for that today.
And thank you very much for both of you to coming in. Thank you very much. Okay, Jared, please.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
nerve-wracking sitting on this side of the table.